All right, and we're live. Welcome back to the Curated Media channel. We have another edition for you guys of Talk of the Town, where we talk a little bit about some recent industry news and sort of do a roundtable format, give our thoughts on what's going on in Hollywood. Been a couple weeks since we've done this. I don't know if our discussion will be quite as in depth as it was last time because we talked a lot about exhibition and production. This time we're talking a little bit more about streaming. That seems to be what our lives are totally occupied by. As always, I'm joined by my two great associates and chums, Pat and
Hi, folks.
JB. JB is in the neon lighting of a club someplace in Ibiza, I think.
Behind my
He's also covering his mouth so we could dub in some words afterwards.
doing my Artie Johnson routine. Very interesting, but stupid.
It's very good. It's very good. You sound good. So we had three stories today that we selected to just sort of chit chat about. And the links to all the original stories that we're referencing are below in case you are interested. So first thing that we want to talk about was this. A couple weeks back, Netflix said that they were piloting a program in France that was essentially a pre-programmed loop of available content from Netflix, which sounds an awful lot like traditional TV. Pat, what do we think about Netflix trying to take a little bit of the choice away from the consumer?
Yeah, it's interesting to see them try and put the genie back in the bottle, which traditionally is something that we're not successful at.
No.
But yeah, I don't see how this is different than regular I think it's a smart move by Netflix, honestly, because I think we all experience choice paralysis where you log on to Netflix or Hulu or HBO, whatever it is that you're looking at, and sure, there's a few recommendations at the top, but otherwise it's just a wall of content, increasingly more obscure, difficult to navigate with a clicker. I know I'm typically watching on my television, and so I can go right, left, up and down, and it's like, all right, well, I want to forget about searching. I gotta navigate around my keyboard, and it's like, well, I don't want to do that. So I think this is a smart choice for people who don't want to have to choose.
Yeah.
And just turn their brains off.
JB, you mine these services. What do you think about Netflix? And from what it sounds like, and Pat and I, we were just discussing it before we went on air, it does sound like this is just basically like an HBO channel. It's not going to be necessarily personalized at this point. It's just going to be, you can tune into this and you don't have to worry about choosing.
I believe it's called Lay Netflix.
Lay Netflix.
Which makes all the difference in the world, which adds a few extra francs to the expense of the monthly subscription. It seems like it's exact opposite of what Netflix has marketed itself from the inception. It's like you decide when and where and what you're going to watch, how you're going to watch it, how many times you're going to watch it, when you're going to watch it, where you're going to watch it. And this sounds like, but if you really want TV, we'll give you TV. And it doesn't, to me, it's sort of much ado about nothing. I mean, it's really no different than a cable channel or whatever. So now if you could sit there and curate your own channel in advance and go for a month, I want to watch these things at this time, and maybe schedule everything. And then also give some, I guess, set it up so you have some prompts so that, you can maybe have a little more personalized. I mean, the suggestion box comes up, but the suggestion box is about as wide as the Grand Canyon. If you want an action movie, you can see anything from a soft porn thing to a French foreign film. I mean, it's got action, and it depends on how you define action, right? So I don't know. I mean, I guess it's okay, but it doesn't seem like it's any great innovation.
Yeah, I think the point you just made was great. If you could, I know I'm the same way with Pat. Sometimes there's a lot of things on my list that I want to watch, and then usually I end up flipping through them and go, maybe this is not the time to watch any of those. And then I'm looking for a secondary thing, and that secondary thing could be wildly variant from an episode of The Office to, like you said, just an action movie. It would be very cool if they did have a shuffle feature. I noticed I think I accessed it through some of the Rokus. I don't know if it was on Apple TV, but where it would just take something on your list and play it at random, which was great. Like days that you had total indecision, you're like, all right, well, get started with this. So if they could incorporate, like JB said, like some type of personal accessibility or customization option, and you could just tune in at any point. to me, that'd be super appealing because it's like a TV station made for you, and maybe
Yeah.
that's the way it's trends.
It's almost like a
Yeah.
concierge service. You pay extra for that. You basically
Mhm.
sit down and go through a questionnaire or something,
Right.
and likes and dislikes and rank things and certain things. They take that all in and do an algorithm and basically say, okay, for the next 30 days, this is what we've got scheduled for your viewing pleasure, Mr. Wire. What do you think about this? You know?
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
that could
it
be,
is.
people might pay for that.
It's kind of flattering that not that they would actually be streaming it and paying whatever royalties and service base and
Right.
that they
Right.
need that, but the idea that you could just tune in 15 minutes past the hour and be halfway into a television show that was picked just for you, like, it is sort of flattering in a
Yeah.
way. In the lizard brain way, it is sort of flattering.
It's
And I mean,
like,
it's not unlike a Spotify.
Mhm.
Spotify, when it hits the end of an album or a playlist, it just keeps going based on whatever it is you were listening to and what it knows you like. So
yeah, you're right. That ego part of your brain, it does feel kind of warm when you like turn something on and you're right, your favorite show is already playing, and it's like I don't know. I always feel weird like when I'm streaming. So I almost like having the live TV aspect. That's one of the things I like about TCM so much is there's like it's pre-programmed, but there's also a little bit of human touch as it goes along, so you can kind of just keep it on throughout the day and not feel like it's your day's just totally wasting away. One thing I just related to this, we're talking about searching through streaming services. What services do you think actually do a good job of presenting options in a clear way? Maybe I'll go to you, Pat, first, if you have a strong feeling. I know what I'm thinking of.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Criterion Channel does it great because
they're incredible.
The Saturday matinee, the weekend double feature, their curation is phenomenal. That's what comes to mind right away. And then I guess HBO, I don't know. I'm always navigating HBO through my Xfinity. And so I don't know what of that is natural to HBO and what of that is like whatever Xfinity is doing. Maybe Hulu. I like Hulu better than I like Netflix, but.
Yep. Yeah, JB, any disagreement on that? I know you mine through the depths of Prime a lot.
Yeah, I really like Prime because it's like a subset of stuff. Because there's like Prime itself, which is obviously Amazon programming, either original programming or stuff they distributed or the stuff they paid for. And then there's the Fire Stick, which is the vehicle which you get a lot of other channels. Like I found a ton of stuff lately. I've been watching a lot of shows off the PBS Masterpiece like app, and it's like international. So I'm getting a lot. I'm watching a couple of good Italian shows that I really, really enjoy. And there was the Borgian show, which I think was not necessarily a PBS show, but ironically enough, the lead actress in that show is an actress who's playing a part in the Roadkill thing that's running on PBS Masterpiece with House is Hugh
Laurie.
Yeah, she turns out to be his girlfriend on the show, which I'd never seen this actress before, and I watched 30 episodes in this Denmark show, and now she's showing up on a British TV show. So, and like shows like Riviera on Prime, but it's through the
Sundance Now. Yeah,
Sundance Now. Yeah. Ironically enough, the Sundance Now app has a lot more content than the Sundance TV channel does.
Right.
A lot of stuff started on Sundance Channel, and then they moved it to the app thing, the streaming service. So it is confusing. I mean, it is interesting sometimes what they relate when obviously you finish, particularly on Prime. I notice when I finish one series, it's already telling me, why don't you watch the first episode of this other thing? But there's like no opportunity to really sort of pause it and say, well, what is it before I commit to this? What is it you're sending me into? Particularly because when you get to you know how it is, when you get to the end of a series that you've been spending any time on, if it was crappy, sometimes you want to be like, okay, I'm done with this, John. If it was really good, you're like, okay, I might want to savor this for a little bit before I jump right into the next thing. I'm sure you guys are the same way. I find myself at any one time, I've got 2 or 3, maybe 4 different shows that I'm watching, and I try to ration it myself because I don't believe in really overindulging, because I think if you do that, I think it's a tough way to really appreciate the true weight of whatever it is that you're trying to pay attention to. I think the directors and the talent deserve a little bit more of if you will, a little bit more time to digest. Mm-hmm. That doesn't mean I can't jump from one thing to another. You know what I mean? But more than 3 or 4, I think it's get oversaturated.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. I do think going back to the organization of these streaming services, I do think everybody could learn something from what the way Criterion just groups things. They make it pretty easy to explore a central theme, and again, not get something kind of random or a selection that's only maybe half related to the thing that you were just watching. It's just a really interesting way that they do it. They give you tiles that are pretty clear, and they tell you whether it's organized by director or by a theme or whatever it is. And there's just a bunch of films in there, and you can go through. You can watch the trailer. You can read the description. I think that's a much better way to do it than Netflix. Every time you hover over something, a trailer starts playing at full blast in your
Right. I don't like
ear,
that feature. I
and
don't
it's
know
just awful.
It's very annoying to me because it's like, I may gloss over something because I want to read the description, not because I want to get into the trailer. If I want to get a trailer, let me hit an icon that says trailer. That is annoying. I don't know why they've
started. Yeah, the autoplay. I think you can turn it off, but it is obnoxious. But anyway, we're speaking of streaming services. Pat talked about HBO Max, and sort of how they organize. One major announcement that I can't think just came yesterday was that Wonder Woman 1984 is going to be out in theaters and on HBO Max for all subscribers at no additional cost the day that it is released. Pat, you follow all the streaming stuff pretty closely. What does this mean, and what symbolically does this mean?
Yeah, I mean, I think for the business, this is HBO Max has seen what dropping, must-see content, basically The Mandalorian, has done for Disney Plus and those subscriber numbers, which they've just absolutely demolished by tens of millions, their projected subscribers at the 1 year mark for Disney Plus. And HBO Max, which is a conglomerate and a service that has at least, I think, the quality of offerings that Disney Plus has stumbled. And I think a lot of it is because I'm personally frustrated by HBO Max because I can't see it on Roku. They launched this thing without negotiating the Amazon Fire Stick, which they finally did like this week. They haven't negotiated it on Roku. It's not on older Apple televisions. It's not even available in my Xfinity box. So I think that they have launched this thing and not had the splash that they hoped. And that I think that they hope that Wonder Woman will be for them, for their streaming service, what The Mandalorian has been for Disney Plus. And I think that that's not a bad bet. I mean, I really enjoyed, I think we all really enjoyed the Wonder Woman movie. And certainly there's, a broad audience for that. So I think it's big there. And then, I mean, symbolically, what do you guys think? Not a good sign for theaters?
Yeah, JP, what do you think about this? Is this another nail in a coffin, or is this something different?
It's I think it's an evolving thing. It's what I don't like about it is it just seems to be catch as catch can, very sort of idiosyncratic. One studio in operation does this, other one does something else. Not that Wonder Woman 1984 is going to be a candidate for Academy Awards, but what does that mean if it's released simultaneously in the theater for a cup of coffee at the same time you can see it on your TV screen? Does that mean it's eligible for awards, not eligible for awards? I mean,
I think they amended a lot of it to make it much more flexible this year. So I would imagine it would be.
Maybe for this year, but is this something that is just a COVID thing, or is this we're going to do this because we believe the way to get this thing done, and because the money's there, right? So if you're a filmmaker, and ultimately you got investors to please, you sit there and say, no, don't take this guaranteed payout from Netflix or Amazon or HBO Max or Disney. Let's take a chance and run it in the theaters and see if we can get $1 billion as opposed to the $700 million that we're being guaranteed, or 600, whatever the number is that the distributor on the net streaming distributor is willing to pay you guaranteed up front. It's going to be awful tough for people to sit there and go, well, I believe this is this is a much larger audience here. Let's just run in the theater. It's like, the investor's going to be like, the money's there and it gets us the return and it's guaranteed. Yeah, maybe we could make more, but maybe not. Who knows?
Right.
For theater, yes, it's each one of these things is a major cut to the carotid artery, because each time it gets a little bit deeper, because each one of these potential tent poles, it gets pulled away or gets potentially diverted people's attention because they can watch it at home, means fewer people coming into a theater.
Right. I think two things. The only place where I would differ with you is I guess I would ask you guys. I think part of the consideration probably was the backlog of stuff that's gotten pushed, since nobody else is releasing their big guns really right now either. And we have a backlog of stuff through 2021, 2022 that we talked about last time we did this segment. I think there has to be a little bit of the calculus in their eyes is probably getting this thing out now. And you're like Pat said, maybe they make the money on the subscription side instead of movie tickets, and they just kind of maybe eat something on this, but they know that there might not be another clear window to move this movie since they bumped it so many times with the intention of trying to keep it in this calendar year. That maybe that is just a unique situation versus some of these things. Like we know that Bond had offers from Apple potentially of over $300 or $400 million, like big offers to just basically wipe that out and just take it to their service and probably give them some additional incentives, and they didn't do it. So to me, that was like a good sign. I'm wondering if this is more of the case of they were like the last ones holding out for this year, and they just ended up without an option to move it into next year with what they're trying to build out maybe in that DC universe. It would have just screwed everything up. So they're like, you know what, let's just get this off. And to Pat's point, maybe they said that it's been a disaster, or not disaster, but the launch hasn't been what we thought it would be, even though everybody's indoors and streaming. Maybe this will move the needle enough to get our subscriber base up to what we had wanted at the beginning of this launch. So that's just the only place where I differ. I think it could potentially be really a bad precedent if other tent poles are like, okay, well, we already saw Mulan go, but Mulan's not quite the movie that this is, and they weren't doing it for no cost to subscribers. So I think it is very interesting to follow.
But Soul the same day. I mean, that is Pixar. That's the golden goose of animation brands. Yeah.
I've been watching those Pixar stories too. Those are cool. The little 15-minute things that they did.
Yeah,
very cool. I very much enjoy them. All right, so JB brought to the table an article from the Hollywood Reporter about how the Nielsen ratings are sort of changing and adjusting for streaming. Streaming has kind of been like a black box because Netflix and the other streamers traditionally don't release much data unless it's really, really overwhelmingly good data, and then they're very happy to share how many millions of people stream something in a given time period. But otherwise, it's all proprietary. There's no good way to get measures. But Nielsen now has come up with sort of what is this called? A total minutes watched metric.
Right. Yeah.
And they're now taking this total minutes watched metric, which is relatively new, like within the past month or two, and looking at individual shows versus episodes and seeing how many minutes viewers spent watching them on a given service. I'm not exactly sure the science behind how they're achieving those numbers. I wonder if it's the same as the sampling they do in regular Nielsen ratings. But now they're applying that same metric to give sort of an apples to apples idea of what is going on and how many minutes are being watched of live events or network TV. So JB, let's talk a little bit about the significance of this.
Well, I think you just covered a lot of it, which is that basically what it tells us is, I guess, two things. One, the news about the demise of network TV was a little bit exaggerated because the numbers are still freaking huge. The number of people that are watching and the number of minutes that people are watching on over-the-air TV and or basic cable is still huge on any given night, any given week. There are shows that are basically people are sitting down for. There's still appointment TV. Obviously, live sports are killer. The streaming services are all eventually Amazon or somebody is going to bid on Monday Night Football or package and going to win because Bezos is just going to say, I'm going to outbid everybody. I want it. But until then, live TV is obviously still the province, mostly of the big networks and or the ESPN. But when it comes to entertainment, what they're showing us is that pound for pound, people are still spending as much time, if not more time, watching over-the-air TV, and the minutes that they have allocated for TV is still gravitating towards these network big type tentpoles. And there's a reason why there's 14 NCISs and CSIs, because people love these shows. And even though I can honestly say, if I had my hand on the Bible, I cannot remember. And this is a kid. You're talking to an old guy now, but as a kid, I grew up on TV. I'm from 3 channels to 5 channels to cable. I mean, I grew up on over-the-air and/or cable. And I can't tell you the last show that I watched on one of the big networks as a regular series. Can't tell you. 20 years ago, forget it. I could have told you I was watching 10 different shows. No, I'm not. But I apparently an exception to the rule because a lot of people are still watching. So the streaming services, yes, they want to have their cake and eat it too. They want to be very secretive about who's watching what. But then when they have like a big hit on one of the HBO Max with the Big Little Lies or whatever, or Mandalorian, they want to tell you how many people are watching, but relatively speaking, it's still, maybe if we have a big hit, it's 5-6 million people. Well, some of these network shows, that's not even 10% of what some of these people are watching as total minutes of a series. So I guess that's what they're saying. If you take a network show and you add up all the minutes that people watch, and when they're watching on, when it gets maybe a rebroadcast or whatever, these numbers are still very, very big, which means that's why the advertisers are still spending all the money over there.
Yeah, it was fascinating to see because the one thing it doesn't seem that they can necessarily take into account is how many right now there's no assumption of how many average episodes necessarily are watched. It's just cumulative minutes. So for example, Schitt's Creek was the leader and it had over 1.4 billion cumulative minutes watched on Netflix.
Wow.
But you don't know if that's 1.4 billion minutes of 3 episodes or 1.4 billion minutes of 3 seasons from X million people. You know what I mean? So
Right.
it's like, it's still very confusing because it might just be the one episode of 60 minutes a week that is also getting, I think they said 755 million cumulative minutes watched, but that's 1 hour of TV in X audience. So I'm sure, I would hope that they could refine these metrics a little bit more to make it even more precise. But it at least gives you an idea, as JB said, of the value of network and live broadcast events, which they clearly already knew.
Right.
Yeah, it's interesting. I feel like you almost need a measure of like engagement. And it is impossible to measure this. Like, how engaged are people when they're watching television? I saw some other article. I'd have to go dig out the link, but people are like, Netflix is sort of, you don't actually have to pay attention. Shows have done really well this pandemic because we all have other stuff going on. And much like with the network television programming in France that they're doing, it's like, oh, so you invented daytime television and people can shut their minds off and, watch Jerry Springer or, Oprah or whatever it is, but the Netflix version of that. And I wonder how much of that, I think we're sort of, not typical of your average consumer in this way. And, JB, you're watching shows from all over the world that require, they have intense plots. You got to read subtitles. I like that we all like that kind of stuff here. And I think, typically we're looking to be engaged by what we're viewing. But a lot of people, and there's nothing wrong with this, are very happy to just have something on in the background that they can enjoy when they can turn their minds on and enjoy it when they want to. And then other times, laugh at a joke or whatever. And other times they just want something on. And I almost wonder if that's a better, I don't know, you can't monetize that. I guess that doesn't matter because you can't monetize how complex and engaging your entertainment is. But
but it's funny that you say that, the idea of daytime content or content that's sort of disposable in the sense that you don't have to pay close attention to it while you're watching it, or if you're watching it, it's just very light fare versus the stuff that we generally like to talk about. It is funny because clearly Netflix did sort of realize that, and so is some of these other services, that there are certain things that are just fluffy stuff that people are going to put on in the background, and they figured out what budget, like, you know what I mean? Like, they actually figured out a dollars and cents budget number that makes sense for these shows to run, like to have Zac Efron go do travel logs and bro out and talk about the environment over in Europe for 10 episodes. They figured out a budget because they knew people would put it on in the background and maybe make a couple memes about Zac Efron looking surprised or taking his shirt off or whatever. So it is it's fascinating stuff on the streaming front. All right, so we've done about 25 minutes, so we'll wrap this guy up. We will be back tomorrow at 12:30, as per usual. We'll do our weekend preview with a couple picks for some family viewing too. But until we talk to you tomorrow, we will
See you in the movies.